Hello. In this video I'd like to give some thoughts on the Catholic Church. My first point is that it's an awesome institution. I mean, when you think about it, it's the oldest existing institution in the world, and it's just completely encompasses the entire world, really. It's the largest global religion, and the art is spectacular, and the music, and although that's all secondary, but really, there's a mass being celebrated almost at every time somewhere in the world, and for all these reasons, I think it's worthy of the acclaim of being an awesome institution. So that's my first point. Also, I think you really need to attend several masses a week to get the full effect, because in today's world, we're sort of totally enveloped by the profane and the secular, and takes something of an effort to reintegrate ourselves into the sacred. I mean, at one time, every action that one took had an element of the sacred in it. There was no sacred space and profane space. It was all sacred. Food and drink were all taken with the sacred in mind. So it helped to get back to something of that lost mentality, which admittedly is very difficult nowadays, because we're just suffused with many profane elements in the culture that we live in, especially in urban life, and you just have to switch on the TV to find something which is anti-spiritual in some way. But I find attending several masses a week, it just reintegrates you with the sacred, with the because the mass is obviously very high, and helps to elevate the mind and the heart, and it keeps us in touch with that deep spiritual sense. So I think that's important. Also, Catholicism has what I call a totalizing effect on one's life, and that means that it really does encompass everything in one's life. It's not just turning up on a Sunday for Mass, it affects one's entire outlook. Hopefully, one is expected to pray every day or several times a day, and attend Mass every Sunday and whenever possible apart from that, and really be guided by God in all things. And if you're living an authentic spiritual life, you'll often find yourself guided by God, or in conversation with God in some form of dialogue, especially during prayer. And it really should have a totalizing effect, especially, as I mentioned before, to combat the profane influences in life, which seem to encroach so much on the religious space. But I think really it does have a totalizing effect, and the more you embrace that, the better it is. And finally, perhaps one of the most wonderful things about it is it allows you to embrace the life of the Trinity. You really become part of the life of the Trinity in a way. You are involved with that, and I think an excellent example is Rublev's icon of the Trinity, because it has the three persons of the Trinity portrayed as angels, and they're sat around the table, and there's a space on the table for the viewer, and it's like you're being welcomed into the life of the Trinity, and that's very powerful. I've got a prayer altar set up in my library, and the Rublev icon is the central part of that prayer altar, because I think it's so powerful, and it is considered to be the masterpiece of Russian art, and the expressions of the persons of the Trinity and everything, it's just perfect. It's really really well conceived, and so the point is that you become part of the life of the Trinity if you live your spiritual life authentically, and you enter into dialogue with God, and hopefully become infused with the Holy Spirit, and you have Jesus to call on, and to converse with even during prayer, because it might seem strange to an outsider, the idea that you converse with God, but it's really not strange at all, because God as a spiritual presence is there in the heart and mind and soul, and it's just something that comes naturally to a believer. Really, they naturally feel engaged in dialogue with God, or even during silent prayer. This tends to happen spontaneously, but depending on what style of prayer we use. And obviously vocal prayers are addressed to a person of the Trinity, or to one of the saints, or to Mary. But this is very important. So overall, I'd say that, the Catholic Church has had an absolutely transformative effect on my life, and I've only been with it for just over 3 years, and I've only started becoming more engaged with the Church in the last few months, so I'm still very new to it, but it just has a tremendous effect, and I just wanted to share my views on that. So hopefully you found that useful. Okay, thank you.